Hi there, Neil from Small Business Big Ideas here with day 6 of my 101 Small Business Marketing Tips video challenge, which is a nice snappy title. So today we are going to talk about expanding your product and service offerings. This very much logically follows on, I think, from yesterday's topic, which was about refining your target audience and niche. Because yesterday I talked about focusing on your most loyal and best customers. These are the sort of people that whatever you bring out, they will probably be interested in buying it without a huge amount of persuasion. There are some brands out there that bring out anything and they've got a loyal base of fans who will buy it. Apple is one that springs to mind. I'm not a great fan of Apple at all, but there are people who will rush out and buy the latest iPhone even though it's not particularly different from the last one. That trend is possibly declining a little, but that's probably to do with the fact that the innovations aren't as great as much as anything else, but that's just a little digression on Apple. But yes, so there will be people out there who, as long as you're providing good value for money, then they will buy your stuff. And I think one thing which I'm often at pains to point out when I'm advising clients is that you want to be building a relationship with your customers, and everybody talks about how a customer has to know and like and trust you in order to buy. Well, there's no reason why you should think that your efforts to build trust should stop when they make that initial purchase. Really, that's the start of the process rather than the end. So yes, you've built enough trust to get someone over the line and to make a purchase. It might be a relatively low value purchase, but you want to build that relationship, build that trust so they buy again and again and again. Now, one of the best ways to build trust is to sell them more stuff, because working on the assumption that whatever you're selling them is good and they're going to get benefit out of it, then that will only help to strengthen the relationship. So I think a lot of small businesses are a little bit sort of wary and shy about sort of selling, being seen to be overtly salesy and selling more stuff. But actually that's one of the most powerful ways that you can build a relationship with your customer base. So you shouldn't be afraid of doing it at all. So that's just a little bit of a starting point. One book that I strongly recommend you get, it does get quite technical, but it's worth reading, is a book called 80/20 Marketing by a guy called Perry Marshall. Now, he came to prominence as one of the first people to really be successful with Google AdWords. But what he did was he applied the writings in the book, the 80/20 principle, to a marketing context. And one of the things I'm going to talk about now is something that he identified, which is absolutely true. And I've touched on it earlier, that if you assume you have a loyal customer base of customers, and let's say that their average transaction value with you is, say, 50 quid, then there will be a large number of them who, if you offered them something cheaper, would be quite happy to buy that. But also, and this is perhaps the thing which surprises more business owners than most, is, if your average transaction value is 50 quid, then, assuming that you're providing good value for money, there will be a proportion of those people who are your target customer who would also quite readily spend 250 quid, or even 500 quid, or 1,000 quid. Again, it all comes down to providing value, and clearly as the price goes up, the proportion of people willing to spend that money will drop. But it will still be a worthwhile exercise to explore ways of seeing if there's stuff that is perhaps more expensive than you'd ever dreamed of selling, and it only takes a couple of customers to buy it to make it worthwhile. One example I use, and I've used in presentations I've given, is if you think about Starbucks, whose average cup of coffee costs what, £3, something like that. Well, the cheapest thing you can get in Starbucks, and I've had a look, is a marshmallow Twizzler, sort of marshmallow covered in chocolate on a lolly stick thing for the kids, which my kids love. And then if I'm doing a presentation, tend to ask what the most expensive thing you can get from Starbucks is. And I've never had somebody guess it yet. But it is, in fact, a coffee machine for the home, Starbucks branded. And that costs in excess of 150 quid. Now, that's not taking any trade away from Starbucks cafes, because unless you've got a Starbucks 2 doors down from your house, you're going to be in a different environment when you're thinking of having a Starbucks when you're out doing the shopping or something like that. But it just demonstrates the fact that there will be people who will be Starbucks loyalists who very much would appreciate the opportunity to have that sort of Starbucks experience at home. And actually, if they went to their local John Lewis or what have you, and there wasn't a machine from Starbucks available, actually they might be a bit disappointed. So rather than Starbucks offending people and upsetting people by offering them this product, it's the reverse. The fact that Starbucks are offering this for their loyal customers will be seen very much as a positive that allows them to take the Starbucks experience home with them. Clearly, 95%, if not more, of Starbucks customers who pop in for a coffee once or twice a week aren't going to necessarily rush out and buy a coffee machine to do it at home, but some will. And I'm often asked, whether or not, how many of these machines they must sell, and therefore whether it's worthwhile them doing it. And my response is, I don't know how many they sell, but what I do know is the machine that's currently available is version 2. So I would assume that Starbucks have got a handle on their numbers, and if version 1 wasn't selling enough, they probably wouldn't have come out with version 2. So just something to think about. So what you want to do is to focus on your customers. So that goes back to the tip from yesterday about really understanding who your customers are, and exploring the things that you already offer, and then thinking about what is called the value chain in terms of whether there's anything that's either cheaper than what you currently provide or more expensive that you currently provide, which is very much seen to be the sort of stuff that your customers would expect you to sell. So it wouldn't be appropriate for a garden centre to start selling, I don't know, high fashion or something like that, but it would be logical and expected if a garden centre suddenly started selling artisan food from local farmers and producers, that sort of thing. So you've got to understand what your customers would expect you to also be offering, but have a look at firstly what your customers would like to buy. Ask them what they'd like to buy. We talked on an earlier tip about having a focus group. Well, there's no better way of finding out whether your customers would be interested in something than asking them. There is actually a better way, and that's them actually paying money to get it. That really validates and proves that there is a demand. But rather than just going out there and buying loads of stuff in without any understanding as to whether they're going to be interested. First, why not ask them? If it comes back and you get lots of positive results, then it's not perhaps so scary to go out and order a test volume. And then if your customers actually do put the money where the mouth is and start buying, then you know you're onto a winner. So I think it ultimately focuses on your customers, where you are in the marketplace, which has got a lot to do with the unique selling proposition that we talked about earlier. But I'd be very surprised if most businesses couldn't identify a handful of additional products or services that their customers would like to buy. Another thing, just before I go, have a think about the relationship that you have with your customers, not just at the initial transaction, but further on down the line. So, you know, it's a case of, are you able to offer them something on a subscription basis? Are you able to offer them something which may not be relevant to them at the point of initially purchasing the product, but does it need any consumables or supplies or anything like that? So, you know, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for selling them additional things, and that will have a significant impact on your revenues and your profits. So hopefully that's been useful. I think it's day 7 tomorrow. See you then. Bye.